told to believe in wants to destroy you in this way. Because
Oh,
it's
and
not
at
a
the same
needed.
time, they were telling Tory and us and other rappers to help fill up the prisons.
Yeah.
They weren't saying it like that, but they were saying, nobody's looking to produce this type of music, and you guys are great. The music's great. Everything's good, but no, can you bring some more of that gangster? We need that gangster, the kill. Literally. Luckily, at that time, Tori and I were older, so, and we weren't as thirsty as some of these other kids, right? We had opportunities to do other things, so,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're able to make different decisions. So, I want to ask you, though, what advice or information would you give, looking back to your 9-year-old self? Just a bit of information that, man, if I had a time machine, I wish I knew that.
Wow. I always think about this question, and I never really come up with something intellectually sound. So I'm just gonna speak from my heart. Of my 9-year-old self, I was
Yeah.
in 4th grade. Um, hmm. So because I went to a Christian school, the Bible was an instrument. It was instrumental in my curriculum,
Hmm.
and we had to learn. Um, we had to memorize the faith chapter, which is Hebrews chapter 11. And what I would tell to my 9-year-old self is this assignment is for your life and not just for this class.
Mm.
Faith
Mm.
is one of the most, if not the most important value that is necessary for surviving and thriving in life, period. You got to believe and you have to have faith in a way that is unshakable. Um,
Mm.
and that entire chapter just gives you just examples and examples of its value.
And
And I
say that chapter again, please.
chapter 11, Hebrews chapter 11, we had to memorize
Okay.
it. I did not take it. I memorized a couple, and then it was like, okay, I'll look at it the day before. That's when I knew I was
What's what's
gifted.
what's
Because
the gist of it?
it's literally faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For
Mm.
by it the elders told a good report. And then there are reports from the elders. So obviously Sarah and Abraham are in there about Sarah wanting a child, and what happened when she stopped believing, and Abraham had like the stories of various elders, biblical elders, and examples of how much faith you need to have, which is just the size of a mustard seed, which tells you how tough life
Thanks.
must be if God is saying you ain't even got to have a large amount of it. It's just got to be this. Have you ever seen a mustard seed?
Man.
A sesame seed. That's how tiny, that's how small the amount of faith is. And that could be to succeed and to fail. A lot of
But
people,
and that's to move mountains and walk on water. So how much
yeah.
faith would you have to get a job or to get a, you know what I mean? So how much faith would that? It would be infinitesimal.
I know I'm not familiar with that word, but it sounds about right.
But self, can you imagine though, if when you were 9, if your 9-year-old, if your adult self told you that, I mean, you would hold on to
Man.
that scripture,
Yeah.
So
That
yeah,
whole that whole thing. It rolled
yeah.
it.
That's why we asked that question. Because could you imagine if your adult because I would have listened, and whatever they said is critical, right? It's critical, So we used to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, great movie. Everybody haven't seen it.
That's a boys movie.
Uh, yeah. Did you lose any childhood friends to violence, drugs, prison, PTSD, alcohol abuse, or people on the corner and stuff like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I used to hang on the corner. I didn't know that wasn't normal
Right.
to come to school, and my friend Jock has gotten killed and he's not able to
And rest up.
go to prom. He's not able to I'm not able to see my friends. I remember this guy that was, this was during one of the peace movements that we had. It was like GDs, everybody came together. It was a truce.
Stop the violence type of thing.
Yeah, and I remember that specific friend, because I used to just by default GD family and folk field family.
Right. Right.
The
Right. We'll
association.
just say affiliation or just
Yeah,
born in it. Right.
this is it, right? And
Right.
then meeting someone really that's not blood related come and explain the value of the piece and the value of wearing that button and the value of like showcasing that kind of image in spite of all of what I knew just growing up and wearing it to school and feeling proud. And then, you know, him breaking up a fight, literally pulling me up off the girl and was like, "What are you doing?" And then finding out he gets killed from gang violence. It was like that was hard to process, but we're supposed to just continue to function like this is normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's residual stuff that
Self
comes
love, and
up.
we call it bigotry as usual. But go ahead. Yeah. We got to get back to what we do and get back to accepting bigotry as usual, because that's what it's all about. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. So these kinds of things were things that I definitely saw, I definitely experienced. Um, you know, and listen, I have a friend who has lost his hearing in one ear, and you would think, you from Chicago. He said he got shot at a college party. I mean, you know, so
Yeah.
the reality is
Yes.
these things happen outside of environments that we typically just assume
Yes.
aren't safe. And just because my mom moved out the projects, my family still lived there until they were demolished. So I was often going to Cabrini Stateway, you know, hanging with my cousins, you know, hanging with my friends, cousins and aunts. And it just feels like growing up at that time, it was just the association kind of protected you. It was a safe haven. Like, they're cool.
Right.
You know, they're safe. 79th in Marshfield, right off of, you know, Ashland, Ducktown, Inglewood. You know, like, I frequented these areas quite a bit. And so obviously you know, going into that environment, what to expect. That's just as a child, you know. So
True.
will grow up, and then there's a new generation in that community. It is your reputation is gone. You know what I'm saying? It's like this is a takeover kind of thing. So I would say, having the experience of losing friends and having the experience of seeing these kinds of things happen, you then understand that there's life outside of that, and that is kind of what I believe is instrumental. Because you can get shelter in the prisons that they set up for us outside of, you know, state.
Facts. I want to ask you this: as a silverback, we call it that because we want our silverback reparations. Cut the crap, cut the check. So, as a silverback, big homegirl, so to speak, what advice would you give to a young sister, you know, that's in Chicago, you know, whopping it up, pilling it up, drilling it up, you know, backdooring people, rolling with the guys, or considering that path? That's what I should say, considering that path. What do you have for them?
No. I mean, based on just the information that I provided you tonight, I rode with a lot of guys that were like my brothers. I had intentions, though. My intention, my intentions were pure, and they saw that. That does not mean that everyone is able to discern those intentions. And so we have to govern ourselves. I always say that we have power and dominion of our own bodies, minds, and spirit. And so we have to remember that. We also have to remember that not everybody was raised. Some kids just grew up, became a young girls, or became young women, and then became grown women, but they weren't, or men, but they weren't raised. And so we have to usher compassion in this specific instance when we say, like, how should you behave? Because if you don't have a family, and the only family you know are the ones that are hanging on the corners, or the ones that live in your building, and they're showing you what you feel is love, it's hard to penetrate that. And that's happened a lot in our community. Some girls and some boys have been taken advantage of because they weren't raised, where they have been taught to not trust their instincts. So I would say, to maintain a sense of security over your body, is to listen to your instinct, and move with purpose, because none of us are here to stay forever. Like, we're mortal beings. We will die. It's inevitable. But the time that we're here is supposed to be purposeful and intentional, and to be of service to other people.